And with us on the program, we have the chairperson of the International Federation of Women Lawyers, Abuja branch, Mrs. Rekia Rachel Adejo Andrew. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Oh, well, like you said, my name is Rekia Rachel Adejo Andrew. I'm the chairperson of the International Federation of Women Lawyers, FIDA Nigeria, Abuja branch. And basically what we do in FIDA is a non-governmental organization. It's not-for-profit, an association of women who have been admitted to the practice of law in Nigeria. FIDA Nigeria is an affiliate of FIDA International. We're everywhere in all the countries of the world, and in Nigeria we're in 33 states, including FCT, Abuja. We're not in Zamfara yet, we're not in Sokoto, and one other state, but we are basically everywhere, so our presence is felt everywhere. And what we do, our mandate is to protect, preserve the rights and the interests of indigent women and children. When there are legal issues that deal with women and children, we take them on pro bono basis. That's basically what we do in FIDA. On pro bono basis, it means free of charge. But the emphasis is on indigent women. So we only encourage women who ordinarily do not have money to hire the services of a lawyer. If you're working and you can afford the services of a lawyer, we encourage you to go to a lawyer. But for women who are really indigent, who do not have the means to take on a lawyer, we take up their cases. And for children, whether you're from a parents who are wealthy or not, we take on cases that have to do with children. But for women, it has to be indigent women. That's what we do in FIDA.
Now, what basically is gender-based violence?
Gender-based violence is any form of act or violence that is perpetrated on an individual on the basis of his or her gender. Ordinarily, you will see that there is gender. Gender could be man, it could be woman. But a lot of times when people talk about gender-based violence, it is narrowed down to women and girls. It is narrowed down to women and girls. And gender-based violence is multidimensional because it has human rights violations. It also have health implications, and then it also have the larger society, it also have implications on the larger society. Gender-based violence, it's human rights issue. And then a lot of times it is discriminatory in nature. It is enshrined in our culture, in our social-cultural nature. That is what gender-based violence is.
Can you give us some examples?
Well, examples of gender-based violence, there are so many gender-based violence. We have domestic violence against the woman, the girl, child. We also have gender-based violence of rape. Rape is the form of gender-based violence. We have another gender-based violence. We have stalking, for instance. If you stalk a person, it's a gender-based violence. Then we have forced marriage. Forced marriage is a gender-based violence because a lot of times the people who are forced into early marriages are girls. You don't have cases of boys being forced to marry early. So forced marriage is another form of gender-based violence. We have forced dependence. Like you tell your wife, for instance, you tell a woman, don't work. I don't want you to go to work. I want you to stay at home and all of that. And the woman is not happy with that. That's another form of gender-based violence. So this and many more are examples of gender-based violence. They are violence that are perpetrated on you, on a woman, because she's a woman.
Are they the same as gender-based crimes?
Yes, gender-based crimes, they draw from gender-based violence. For instance, if you look into our laws, maybe the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, for instance, you will see that these acts are already criminalized. So where you have someone stalking, ordinarily, you would think that stalking is not anything serious. But where you have someone stalking another, the VAP Act, for instance, has criminalized it. So it is a crime if you stalk someone, or it is a crime if you mutilate the genitals of your girl child. It is a crime. If you force someone into marriage, it is already criminalized. So gender crimes are derived from those gender-based violence. So it is not just that you're perpetrating the violence and then you can go scot-free. Even though, like I said earlier on, they are really, really enshrined in our culture. But it is time for us, we need to move away from culture. We need to move away from certain things that our culture permits. For instance, take the issue of harmful traditional practices against a widow. You say because someone is a widow, first of all, you accuse her that she killed her husband. As if that is enough, you say, okay, for her to prove her innocence, let her lie down with the corpse of her husband. And then you take it to another ridiculous level by saying you're going to bath the corpse of the husband, you're going to wash the corpse, and she's going to drink. All these, ordinarily, our culture, they are coming from culture. Like I said, you remember I said that they are enshrined, gender-based violence are enshrined in our culture. So all of these are coming from our culture. But there is a law which criminalizes all of this. So anybody who does any of this will be caught under the law. And one interesting thing about this law is that it's not until you carry out the act. If as much as you incite someone else to carry out the act, or you abet, or you even counsel someone else to carry out the act without you, does not necessarily mean that you have to perpetrate the act or carry out the act. So long as you incite, you counsel, or you abet, you are liable.
So could you enlighten us more on this particular act? I think it's Violence Against Persons Act.
Yes, Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. It's an act which was promulgated in 2015, and it is an act that was promulgated. You know, Nigeria is a signatory to a lot of international conventions. So this act is premised on Convention on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, which we call CEDAW. Now, this act is designed to eliminate all forms of violence against all persons, not necessarily women and children now, against all persons, whether men, whether women, whether children, whether girls, whether boys. So it is intended to eliminate all forms of violence, both in private and in public life. And this act talks about physical violence, it talks about emotional violence, it talks about economic violence, and it talks about psychological violence. So all forms of violence are covered under this particular act. But the interesting thing about this act that, you remember I said that it is based on the fact that Nigeria is a signatory to CEDAW, to the Convention of CEDAW. Now, this act has to be domesticated in the different states of the Federation, although it is applicable in Abuja. And as at now, only 9 states have domesticated this act, which means that I think 9 out of 36, that would be like 25%, which means that we still have a lot of work to do in terms of domestication of the VAB Acts in Nigeria.
We're going to go on a short break now, and when we come back, we'll continue with this discussion.
In a country of 94.2 million women, we struggle through life as a girl child. We are condemned from birth for being female. We are abused right from birth with female genital mutilation. Growing, we struggle and are told we are only good at taking care of the home and that our male siblings are the ones who deserve to go to school. As we grow, we are sent out to work far away from our families. There, we are abused by the people we work for. If we don't marry, we are trafficked. If we marry, we are victims of domestic violence. Our husbands forcefully take our salaries. What does it take to give us a voice? To give us an education? To give us a future? Powerful people in a powerful world. We are only girls, but with a strong voice we say, leave our daughters alone.
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 You're welcome back, and we're still talking to Mrs. Rekia Rachel Adejo Andrew, the chairperson of FIDA Abuja branch. Now, what exactly is gender identity?
Okay. Gender identity is not biological. According to WHO, the World Health Organization, gender would refer to socially constructed roles, activities, behaviors, and attributes that a particular society would consider appropriate.
Example?
To man or woman. For instance, I give you an example. In the house, you have a boy as a child, you have a girl as a child. In some families, in the morning you tell the boy, go and wash plates. The boy will tell you, that's not a role for me, I'm a boy. I'd rather go and wash the car. So already, it's already tilting towards gender. The boy is already beginning to see that the role of washing of plates or of staying in the kitchen to cook is not his role. He would rather wash a car. He would rather change tires. You understand? So who is defining that role? That role is being defined because it has been accepted over time that anything that has to do with being in the kitchen is for the woman. So that is how you come about gender. It is not defined by whether you are a man or you are a woman. Rather, it is defined by what the society, a particular society, accepts as the role for either a man or a woman. That's what determines or defines gender.
What states have the highest rates of domestic violence?
Well, the statistics are not so very clear as to which states have the highest rates of domestic violence. But one thing that is very clear and that is very certain is that domestic violence is on the increase on a daily basis everywhere. And it is not restricted to any particular status. It doesn't respect status. You won't say that because some people are wealthy, they don't suffer domestic violence. It is not true. So it cuts across all classes. Middle class, rich class, lower class, domestic violence cuts across, and it's on the increase in all the states of the Federation. It's everywhere. So the statistics are not so clear as to which state has the highest rate. But one thing that is very, very certain, which Clean Foundation has come out with a report, is the fact that 1 out of 3 women will suffer one form of gender-based violence or domestic violence. 1 out of 3. And that's a huge ratio. 1 out of 3. That's a very huge ratio. It is very high.
But if the ratios are so high, why, and there are laws against it, why are people not reporting? Why are people not being charged for these various acts?
Okay, the reason I think we should deal with why are people not reporting first, because the reason why people are not being charged is coming from it's coming from the fact that people are not reporting. Now, one of the reasons why people don't report gender-based violence or domestic violence is the fear of stigmatization. For instance, by the time you hear that a girl has been raped, no mother, a lot of times, this culture of silence, a lot of mothers will not want to come out and say, my daughter has been raped, because they will think, oh, who will marry my daughter when she grows up? So there's that fear of stigmatization. So because of that, they will rather keep to themselves. Or take, for instance, a father that defiles his girl children, that defiles his daughters. The mother might want to say she's protecting our marriage, but of course we know that there's no more marriage in an abusive, under that kind of condition where the man defiles his daughters. So the woman might be under pressure not to tell anybody. So there's this culture of silence, there's this fear of stigmatization. At other times, people are afraid, because sometimes the perpetrators of this violence, they instill fear in their victims. And they tell them, if you tell anyone, I will not only come after you, I will come after you, I will come after your family members. So once they instill that fear in them, they are afraid. They don't want to talk. And at other times, it could be the attitude of maybe the law enforcement agencies. Sometimes you're reporting a rape, and the first thing you're being asked is, how were you dressed? How were you standing? What did you wear? How did you look? How was your hair? How was your dress? For God's sake, when you get this kind of questions, they will throw anybody off. Of course, this is someone who is already traumatized. If we talk about how were you dressed, that your dressing was provocative, what about a baby? We have seen cases of 2 months old baby wearing pampers, wearing diapers, who has been defiled. A 5-year-old child, 6-year-old child. At the moment, there is a matter that we are doing that is right in our office, in our FIDA Abuja office. We have an 11-year-old mother who was raped by 3 men. So would we say that that girl was dressed in a provocative manner? What would be the attraction for anybody to want to commit such a heinous crime on a girl of 10 years? She was 10 years at the time she was impregnated. At the time she gave birth, about a month ago, she turned 11.
What can be done to curb this?
What we can do to curb all of this, number one, we need to first of all domesticate this act, this Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, in all the states of the Federation, so that we are all at par when it comes to eliminating violence against persons. And then again, I think that our faith-based institutions, they will need to help us. We need to talk to ourselves. Whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, we need to talk about these things, because, like I said before, there is a culture of silence. I think maybe we don't even talk about it well enough. So we need to begin to talk about it. We need to raise the awareness. That campaign, we need to raise the campaign. We need to raise the awareness. People need to know that they need to talk about this thing. And then, again, we also need to do at the family level. We need to talk to ourselves at the family level, because a lot of times this violence, they start from the family level. For instance, a man that beats his wife and the son sees the mother being beaten at all times, most likely that child will grow up also to become violent. So we need to talk, we need to also show good examples to our children at family level. We need to talk to ourselves. We need to do a lot of sensitization. We need to do a lot of advocacy at the state houses of assembly, so that these acts can be domesticated in our various states.
And our law enforcement agencies doing enough?
Well, I would not want to indict them, but I think they can do more. They can do more. Like in Abuja here, we have a robust relationship with the FCT command. We have a gender-based, a gender unit where we take our cases to. They're trying, but they can do more. They also need to be enlightened. They need to enlighten their officers. Like I know that at the moment the FIDA National, because that is our umbrella body in Nigeria, FIDA National is planning a workshop whereby we will have all the stakeholders in the administration of criminal justice sector, including the police, including the bar, including the bench, lawyers, private individuals, and media, where they will all come to a roundtable workshop where they can be enlightened and sensitized about this act, so that they will even know the provisions of this act, so that when we go to the police station, for instance, somebody says, I have been raped. You're not asking the person, what happened? How did it happen? What were you wearing? Once you know that there is the law in place, you just know that, and for the offense of rape, is an offense that can be proved on the basis of primary evidence. So once somebody comes to you and says that I have been raped, as a police officer, you should know what to do. You should be able to tell the person, oh, have you gone to the hospital? You haven't gone. Okay, go to hospital, so that the necessary medical tests will be carried out. So we need that workshop so that all the relevant stakeholders can come together, and then they'll be sensitized, they'll be aware of the provisions of this law, so that there can be implementation.
That's about all we can take on the program, and we have been talking to Mrs. Rachel Adiejo Andrew, Chairperson, FIDA, Abuja. Thank you for being on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
In a country of 94.2 million women, we struggle through life as a girl child. We are condemned from birth for being female. We are abused right from birth with female genital mutilation. Growing, we struggle and are told we are only good at taking care of the home, and that our male siblings are the ones who deserve to go to school. As we grow, we are sent out to work far away from our families. There, we are abused by the people we work for. If we don't marry, we are trafficked. If we marry, we are victims of domestic violence. Our husbands forcefully take our salaries. What does it take to give us a voice, to give us an education, to give us a future? Powerful people in a powerful world. We are only girls, but with a strong voice we say, leave our daughters alone.
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 Leave our daughters alone. Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters alone.
Leave our daughters
Leave our daughters alone.
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 With grief in our heart, but with total submission to the will of God, the family of Mr. Patrick Etong of Asiga Old Town of Cross River State announces the sudden demise of their daughter, sister, cousin, mother, grandmother and friend, late Madam Cecilia Eko Etong. She was aged 53. Burial arrangement. Friday, 7th February 2020. Service of songs at her family compound. Saturday, 8th February 2020. Funeral service at St. Peter's Catholic Primary School compound. Interment follows immediately at her family compound. May her gentle soul rest in perfect peace. Amen. Announcer, Promise Peter Ujong for the family.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
This is the network service of the NTA.
December 2016. A video is widely shared by Burundian social media accounts. It shows red liquid flowing from the gutter of a private property. Those who posted it speculated that the liquid might be blood. Some asked if the house was being used by Burundi's feared intelligence services. The government immediately denied that this house, or any other, had ever been used as a torture facility. BBC Africa Eye has been looking closely at this house and asking some critical questions. Who lived here? Did people die here? And is the Burundian government running secret torture facilities to silence dissent?
The reason why we're here is to protest this third mandate of the president.
The streets of the capital, Bujumbura, in 2015. Burundi is a tiny country in the Great Lakes region of Africa. It shot into the headlines when President Pierre Nkurunziza decided to run for a third term in office. People took to the streets, claiming he was violating the constitution.